Okay, here's one I just bought off eBay that I'm not crazy about, but I'm not too disappointed with either. This kind of, oh, okay. I had actually forgot that I had bought this thing. But it was on eBay, and to be 100% honest, it had a buy it now for 200, and it had a picture similar to what you see in the video cam here. It was about this distance, and it looked fairly clean from there. So I'm like, well, 200 for that. The tube's got to be worth that. So, we gave it a shot, and what we plan to do, or still plan to do with it, is to convert this into a 4-tube modulator. Right now it's just a standard, one drive and 3 grounded grid using the I think it's got 6LB6, which is a cousin of the 6LF6, which is the 6-volt version of the 8950s, and the M2057s is the super heavy duty version of the tubes. But this one has some decent 6LB6, one drive and 3. And from a distance, like I say, the picture he had, I'm like, it looked pretty good, pretty clean. I want a clean one to work on, to convert. But when I got it, was packed pretty well, very well, no complaints there. It had some heavy duty bubble wrap at about 3 inches, so it was like in a little blanket of bubble wrap. And then it had some heavy duty I guess shipping paper, and the box was the appropriate size. And even though the tubes were not wrapped or anything like that, he had the original cover on, and the tubes didn't have any support. But since he had shipped it okay and wrapped it in all that bubble wrap, I didn't have any problems with the tubes or the amp at all. Once you look up close, you can see that it's not all that great looking. You can see the particles, or the slight rust, I guess that is, not bad. And of course, I don't like this switch here right in the middle. I hate it when people do that, but people do what they do. And that switch, come to see, controls the fan in there. This box didn't originally have a fan, so somebody added the switch to turn the fan off and on. And it's a standard amp. Power, high side, low side. It's a power light, power indicator. Even though it's just got one stitch switch for standby, it's actually a 3-position switch. In the middle, I went all the way down. In the middle is actually standby. Down is the preamp on and operate, and up is the preamp off and operate. A lot of Macos have that arrangement with the 3-position switch there. Got the AM SSB switch. All it does is add a delay to the relay for SSB, and then your output, or your final tune and load, with a modulation light on the front. Over here you got your 1 drive and 3. I think I had a problem with it. I couldn't get anything like over 70-80 watts out of this thing, and it wouldn't work right. And it took me a long time to figure it out, that they had the that's the driver tube there, and then the 3 output, they had the output of the driver tube hooked to one of the final tubes. So the one final tube was the only one that was actually getting drive and putting anything out. And it took me quite a while to figure that out. But when they had them hooked up wrong, it's not something I expected or looked at. But I think Tim, a friend of mine here in Detroit, figured, well, I put it on a video, like, who can figure this one out? I already knew it once I found the answer, and Tim came up with the answer. So attaboy, Tim. And that's the big added fan that somebody put in there. That's the tank coil. That red blocking cap is not original. And it's kind of funny that they use one parasitic there on the driver, and then they got one parasitic choke coming off the plate choke for all 3 of the final tubes. I've only seen Maco do that. I haven't seen anybody else do that. That there, if I can zoom in a little bit, that's the driver tune. And you want a long insulated screwdriver to play with that, you know, so close to the plate voltage there. So I think that's it on top. And going underneath, turning it over. Yeah, it's a lot going on in there, you know, pretty crowded, but I think that's Maco's standard keyer board and preamp board there, you know, high voltage. And somebody replaced the caps with those small can caps there, 4 in series. And that's the tune and the load on the inside, and that's the underside of that variable cap for the driver tune. That's the coil for the driver tune. And over here you got the input tuner mechanism, you know, standard relay. You can see some work's been done on it. And I guess if you can see it there, one time it had a bad arc. But we were surprised to see that, you know, we hooked it up and variacted it up, and, you know, everything seemed okay. So we keyed it down and everything's working in the thing, and we haven't done a thing to it. Well, we did do one thing. When we tuned it up, if you can see the tune coil there, you know, it's tuned up now. And I'm going to mess with it to show what it was doing when I first tuned it up. It had, you know, decent output. But when I tuned it, the tuner was meshed all the way open. Like that, at minimum capacitance. So the way to fix it, when you have a tuner at minimum, the tank coil, which in this case is over on that side, works the opposite of the way the capacitor works. So more coil you'll need less capacitance to tune, and less coil means you're going to need a little bit more capacitance. And since that capacitor was tuned at minimum, I wanted to tune it to more. So what I did was I spread this coil a little bit. You might even see it on the right side of it that is, you know, spread out a little bit. I spread it a little, you know, a little bit goes a long way with that. And once I spread that out, it's going to call for more capacitance to tune the tuner, which it did. And hence, instead of tuning, you know, like this at minimum, if you can see, you know, the tuner fins there, you know, it tuned somewhere around there, I believe. Yeah, that's upside down looking at the knob, but somewhere around there when I, you know, got it tuned up now. So everything tunes up right. And you can see that one is, you know, not fully meshed either. Tuned up okay. So that's the way you want your tuners. You don't want them, you know, all the way in like that, or all the way out like that. You want them somewhere in the middle when, you know, they're tuned right. And this one tunes there. And the same with this one, even though this one spins around, you don't want it at minimum and you don't want it at maximum. That means you're not tuned correctly usually. You want it, you know, somewhere in the middle, you know, like that. And you can play with that coil, you know, to achieve that, you know. And here's the coil for the driver. And you can see that that's, you know, neither at minimum or maximum. It's, you know, not too far off the middle. So, you know, that one's fine. So anyway, that's my quick thoughts on the tuners, and that's what the inside of this thing looked like. And again, we bought this to convert it into a 4-tube modulator, you know, similar to the 1-tube Maco 75, and which I done recently, or the 2-tube Maco Super 75. I always wanted a 4-tuber, you know, like a Super Duper 75, I guess. You know, I should be able to get 750 peak watts, swing watts out of it, you know, with a low dead key, if and when I ever, you know, convert this to that. If, you know, I get to it, project number, you know, 1374 for me. But anyway, that's the plan for it. But we were happy to see that, you know, it wasn't as clean as I expected, but, you know, you get what you get, you know. You roll the dice or you spin the wheel, you take your chances, you know, as it's warming up. We got the same little mud duck radio that little Midland there wired, and it's going into the Maco, and we got a big dummy load on top. So anyway, we're on and we're warming up hopefully, and I know I didn't mess with them tuners. So anyway, let's see if we can get it tuned up with the camera in one hand and a mic in another, and see if I can get the tuner going. Yeah, we're way off. There we go. And up there. You never want to mistune the output of an amp. Even a driver. When you mistune the driver or the outputs, you're hurting the tubes. If you mistune the driver, you're hurting the driver too. You mistune the final tuner load, you're hurting the final tubes. That's the way that works. So if I played with it, do a little more. And I usually tune while I'm whistling for swing, but since I got a camera in one hand and a mic in another, and it's hard to tune and load, and I'm old and not that coordinated, but it'll do about 150 dead key audio, you know, standing still on average, and on peak. Might not do it now because it's not totally tuned, especially for peak audio. Yeah, it's barely moving forward, but if I tuned it up for peak, it would swing to 200 peak, and that's the high side. And going to the low side, well, actually I'm still getting that high dead key. So anyway, I must have knocked something off with this thing. But on the low, playing with the variable in the back, the input tune, it can get it to dead key about 5 and swing to about 100 on average. But still, I want to convert this thing into a modulating monster. So I'm going to sit it on the shelf, and one day maybe we'll get the parts and play with it and see if we can make this into a 4-tube modulator, unless somebody make me an offer I can't refuse and we let it go. So that's it on this latest acquisition, a Maco 200. Bye.